In the One Piece community, there's this stigma around many characters or even factions inside of the story. Now, time and time again, you'll see this infamous panel of Garp being posted online, and this will start a bunch of discourse. You'll also see a bunch of controversy around characters like Sakazuki and even Kuzan. So, in this video, I'm going to be addressing everything negative to do with the Marines to make sure by the end of the video, you actually understand them. So, strap in, because I'm about to get real in depth with this video. But before I get into the video, if you guys enjoy content like this, you guys know what to do. Hit that like button and subscribe, as I do post content like this regularly, and to be honest, it's a win-win. If you guys show me love and support, I'll give it back to you in the form of videos. Whether it's One Piece, other anime, or just fiction in general, in due time I plan on covering it, so be there when I go there. But I feel like I've rambled on long enough, so I jump straight into the video and explain how the Marines are misunderstood. Now, when talking about the Marines being misunderstood, I do think that this does come from a place of everybody viewing them as just villains, and that is it at the end of the day, instead of antagonists that actually do have feelings and emotions. Now, I do know that they are drawings, but at the exact same time, a lot of people like to humanize somebody like Katakuri and obviously try to understand him, unlike with characters like Garp, Kuzan, and just many of the other Marines. And for a character like Garp to not even get the same amount of respect that Katakuri does when it comes down to actually trying to understand him is kind of bizarre, as many casual fans or just fans that try to interpret the series in a certain way will then make Garp out to be a villain, when Garp has only wanted one thing for his grandsons, and that is for them to be Marines, and that is for them to basically be safe from everything that Roger was doing, as he does understand what comes with being a pirate. That is why he was crying to Ace. Another thing that people do like to bring up is Garp actually not saving the slaves on God Valley. Now, for all we know, he could have, but we don't actually know what happened there, so for all we know, he could have just let the slaves be and done nothing to help. Now, do I believe that Garp is going to sit there and just let slaves be slain? I don't think so, but it's always a possibility. Now, how I view Garp is how I view a lot of old people, or just people from times where things were a lot stricter, or they had to follow the right way of life. For Garp, him joining the Marines feels like he was joining the Marines to make a good impact on the world, but then over time he then saw that it's just not the way forward, as if it really was, he would have then became an admiral, but he saw what comes with becoming an admiral. You don't really get that far, as you're just stuck under the Celestial Dragon's boot, so what he decided to do was stay a vice admiral so he can then be flexible. It's very clear that Garp, through his teachings, likes to teach his students to be rebellious in some way and to follow their heart. There's a reason that Kobe acts the way he does, and so does Kuzan, and so does Ace and Luffy. They all have this rebellious spirit about them and will do whatever they want to do just so they can get what they want and follow their way of life. Even Dragon falls into this, as Dragon set up the Revolutionary Army, and as we know, that is Garp's son. There is a reason that everybody Garp lays a finger on always turns out to be somebody different and goes against the actual chain of command that is currently going on inside of the world government. And another thing that tells us that Garp was just naturally rebellious is because he was willing to hide Roger's son from the world government. Now, a detail that a lot of people do miss is that a lot of women were actually slain because they couldn't find Ace. And this alone does show us that Garp isn't somebody that is 100% pure, even though he may try to come across that way, and I do love that from Oda. Oda is willing to take risks with these characters that are meant to be beloved, and this is why I do believe that everything building up to him crying on the podium does happen. Garp knows that even though he can try to tell people to go one way, his whole motto is living by whatever way you want to live by, and that is why Kuzan literally embodies this. See, in my eyes, Marineford was a turning point for Garp. Garp had been trying to live under what the world government and what they would try to put on him, but at the exact same time, he had his rebellious spirit in him, and so he didn't know what to do. Garp pre-time skip was in a mental warfare with what he is as a person. So that is why when you see him face off against Kuzan, that is why he acts the way he acts, because he knows that you can't be mentally challenged or just be in a place where you don't know what you want to do when there is somebody in front of you that is trying to change something in your life and is trying to take something away from you. That is why he didn't hesitate to fight Kuzan, and that is where Kuzan then has a lesson of his own. See, a lot of the community did actually misread how Kuzan and Garp's conflict went down. A lot of the people feel like Garp should have been more mentally conflicted here when it's actually meant to be the other way around. The one who is in distress here is Kuzan and not Garp. The reason is because Kuzan hasn't fully gotten over what happened to him at the end of the pre-time skip or whenever him and Sakazuki fought. You see, Kuzan is somebody that actually holds a lot more grudges than a lot of people think. A lot of people think that he is somebody that is carefree, and to be honest, he is for the most part, but when it comes down to his way of justice, he is somebody that is very fixated on doing whatever you want and just making your decisions depending on how you feel. That is why he was able to let Robin go, and that is why he despises Sakazuki's way of life, and that is why at every point that he can, he will disrespect him. This is something that a lot of people don't actually clock onto. Kuzan doesn't like Sakazuki not one bit, but Sakazuki does actually kind of like him. So to see Garp roll up here and Garp telling him that, listen, I don't care if you are a former student of mine, I'm still gonna beat your ass, that is what was putting Kuzan on edge, and he felt like he didn't want to hurt Garp. Even though he had left the Marines, it was because he didn't want to be under the control of Sakazuki. He didn't like thinking of what mission Sakazuki would send him on, as he already knew how Sakazuki would act if certain missions were sent his way. That is why he left. And so when he then fought Garp, he didn't know what to do, as he still views Garp as his mentor and still has a lot of love for him. And that's also why you do see Kuzan coming in and helping people like Smoker. You see, Kuzan isn't somebody that is totally against the Marines. He just doesn't like who's in charge. So that is why he'll come and help when need be, or do things or say things to them that often makes them think, what side is he truly on? And that was his whole mental conflict coming out of the post-time skip. Kuzan is technically still finding himself. Even though he's on the Blackbeard Pirates, he took the spot because why else would you turn it down if you're a wanderer? You might as well get the protection of a Yonko crew, and at this point you can truly find yourself. And so when he finishes his fight with Garp, I truly do believe that he did get the answer to his question on where he really stands and what he wants to do. Personally, I don't believe Kuzan is going to be on the Blackbeard Pirates for much longer. I believe at this point he knows what he wants to do, and I don't think he will fully align with the Marines, but he will be in some sort of grey area. And another person I do believe is in this grey area is Fujitora. Now, Fujitora, as we know, is somebody that has gone against the Marines time and time again, and just like Garp and Kuzan, he lives his life on his own accord and what he deems is right. As we saw in Dressrosa, he was willing to help them out because he saw what the unjust warlord system was doing, and when he had that conversation with Smoker, he knew what was up. So when he went there and he saw everything that was going down, he wanted it gone. And to only add on to that, when he then went to Marie-Joie, he then went out and started rescuing slaves because that is the right thing to do. It's clear that Fujitora doesn't align with what the world government want him to do, and so this is where his story goes through. At this point, we haven't seen Fujitora for many chapters, and in my eyes, I do see him actually doing something that could either make him leave the Marines or stay there, but he is going to be in limbo. Now I will admit that Fujitora is definitely the most understood out of all of them, as he is pretty clear cut and has always been about one thing. But somebody that is terribly misunderstood is Kizaru. Now with Kizaru, there have been several discussions. I mean, I even made a video about it not too long ago, and so for him, Kizaru is misunderstood mainly due to his actions. Before Egghead, Kizaru was seen as this lazy guy that would just do whatever he's told to do, and so that is all we saw from him. But when he arrived on Egghead, you could tell that it was a little bit different, as already he was going up against Sentomaru, and through their fight, he was reminiscing about the past. And the past would only get to him as he then began his fight with Luffy, and one panel that really stuck out to me was when he kicks Luffy and he began reminiscing on him and Vegapunk talking about that robot. That right there is where everybody should have clocked on to what this arc was really about. And so with him fighting Luffy, it was more about him stalling for time and wanting for Vegapunk to get away instead of him actually trying to complete his mission. Constantly he would tell himself that he needs to complete the mission, but he knows deep down that he can't do that, and that is why he then says he is just a cog. That's all he needs to view himself for this mission, as he knows that this mission is going to be hard, and so what he needs to do is just zone out and lock into his mission. But as we know, he can't do that, because while trying to get to Vegapunk, he makes many stops and even falls down to the ground and fakes being hurt just so Vegapunk can get away. But as we all know, even though Kizaru tries over and over again just for Vegapunk to get away, it doesn't work, as he ends up getting stabbed by Saturn and then in the end by him. It's clear that Kizaru was trying to let Vegapunk get away, but you just can't stop when you have Saturn on his tail constantly pressuring him to get this mission done, and Kizaru can't act like he can play favorites here. And that is why over and over again he had to remind himself that this is just a mission and he is a cog. And if it wasn't for him breaking down at the end of the arc, I feel like a lot of people would still mischaracterize him. But even then, I do see a lot of people just not understand where he was coming from. Him crying to Sakazuki was him literally saying that I have done one of the worst things ever, but I had to do it because it was a mission and that is my role. And even though I do see arguments out there that he should just fought against the Gorosei, realistically speaking, he is an admiral. If he gives up, then what happens to the people of the world? Vegapunk is releasing what's meant to be dangerous knowledge, and so if the people of the world don't know what to do and one of their admirals are gone, what should they really do? This is where there's a lot more things instead of just thinking about Kizaru and just thinking about Egghead itself and then just thinking about the overall world and what they would have to do. This neutral stance is a stance that a lot of people do have to take when they're making harsh decisions. Sengoku does understand this, and this is why I do say that Kizaru and Sengoku are meant to be on the exact same path of justice, but Kizaru just isn't ready for it yet, and he is somebody that would prefer to follow orders instead of making that harsh decision. If Sengoku was in that place, maybe he would have fought back, but at the exact same time, we've seen Sengoku do many things that people would call heinous, but in my eyes, that's just him doing his job. The exact same thing with Green Ball, but the thing is with Green Ball is that he has had a life where I feel like his brain is naturally going to be more targeted that way. As a bit of his life was revealed in the SBS, I do believe that not a lot of the community are going to understand where he's coming from when he says half of those things. Now, do I agree with it? And in fact, do I agree with half of the things that admirals do? Especially somebody like Sakazuki, who is extremely straight up and will only do things one way because he believes that the eradication of all bad then allows good to come in. But let's flip things on its head. Think as if you are somebody in the One Piece verse. Realistically speaking, you're not going to want somebody like Luffy or anybody like that to be roaming around. Instead, you would rather Sakazuki be in charge, as he literally promises that he will eradicate all pirates. You then have somebody like Kizaru who is willing to make that hard decision, even though he doesn't want to. He would then decide to side with the Marines and get rid of somebody that he's extremely close to, just to save the world in quotation marks. And you have somebody like Green Bull who is willing to enforce what the gods in quotation marks of the world are doing. Deep down, every Admiral has gone through something in their life, or even Garp, they've gone through something in their life or believe that their way of life is the right way. Now, it doesn't mean that they're evil people. In fact, it's the opposite. All of them do believe that they are doing something for a greater purpose, but because we view this story through the lenses of somebody like Luffy, who is their direct opposite and somebody they need to bring down, we view them as evil people. But in reality, if we viewed it from the perspective of even somebody like Kobe, we would understand all of their decisions, as they want to protect the people from people like Luffy, who, even though we as the audience know he is a good person, to them, they can't see that. All they can see is a pirate going around causing ruckus, and so they need to get rid of him. So that is when we then see them do all of their different actions. We then view it as evil, when deep down, they're actually good people. I truly do believe that the community misunderstanding the Admirals and just a lot of the Marines inside the story does come down to who we are viewing as the main character, instead of them actually just mischaracterizing them. Yes, I have seen a lot of mischaracterization online about Sakazuki, as they believed if a girl dropped an ice cream cone on him, he'd kill her, but no. It's quite the opposite. He'd probably buy her a new one. And that is what I'm talking about with the Admirals being misunderstood. A lot of people like to just twist it and put it into their own way and say that, oh, they're terrible people because of this, that and the third. When you look at it through their lens, they're not really bad people. Deep down they're actually good, but they're just going about it the wrong way in our eyes, because we can get the full scope and we can understand everything while they are still being fed information at the exact same time we are, but it's at different stages. All that being said, that is the end of the video. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, I did enjoy making it, and so yeah, I love you all. I shall see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.